Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Optimal Wealth Podcast, where we discuss creating passive income through real estate. Our mission is to help educate investors on how to grow wealth and invest passively. My name is Jarod Alexander, and I am a passive investor, currently in 6 syndications as a limited partner. I am also the founder of Optimal Equity Group, which is a real estate investment firm that was created primarily to help educate the passive investor. We do that in a couple of different ways. One is we provide education to help give you the confidence to get into the passive investing space. And two, each episode we will interview amazing guests that explore the strategies, insights, and secrets used by successful investors. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting out on your real estate journey, this podcast is designed to help give you the confidence and knowledge you need to make informed and profitable decisions. Welcome to another episode of the Optimal Wealth Podcast. Today, I'm super excited to have our guest, Glenn Yaney. Glenn, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jarod.
Well, thanks for being here. A little bit about Glenn is he's a key partner in guiding the real estate investment firm Vertical Equity Partners. With over a decade of hands-on experience in the real estate industry, Glenn has built a reputation for his relentless drive to strategic acumen and commitment to excellence. So his journey actually started as a server at Red Lobster, and now to a successful real estate investor and entrepreneur who owns about $40 million worth of real estate to date now. So with that, Glenn, just right there in that one paragraph is pretty impressive and a lot to unpack. So if you could walk us through that journey from starting as a server at Red Lobster, because I think as a lot of us, we don't start out, and owning $40 million of real estate, right? We all start somewhere. So walk us through again that journey, the mindset you had, getting to where you're at today, and then anything in between for us.
Man, working at Red Lobster, every time I tell this story, it's just like I'm always grateful that I don't work at Red Lobster anymore. But I was at Red Lobster, and what I would do when I worked at Red Lobster is I started looking into getting my real estate license. And what I would say first is I actually got sober from alcohol, and my attention shifted from drinking alcohol to more important things, which is at the time I ended up having to move back in with my parents at age 24, and I'm moving back in with my parents. Sleep. It's just a rough time for me, and I'm just trying to get my act together. I'm working at Red Lobster. I actually got into insurance. Somebody told me I should get my 215, which is your health life variable annuity license. And I got that license, and it was at the same time that Obamacare was starting. So I knew that health insurance was not a good industry to be in. It was pretty much imploding for the insurance agents because everything's done online. So within a month of getting my insurance license, I met a few financial advisors that were selling life insurance, and they told me to read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I read that book. It kind of shifted my ideas to what I should be doing. And so he told me, and I started reading things like Bloomberg and like just things that are incredibly boring to read, to be honest. Like I have a hard time listening to them today. But what I would say is that I'm just like, what do I need to do to figure out this money thing? And I ended up getting my real estate license because I knew that I was like, well, if they say buy low, sell high, real estate, it's 2012, and it's time. I would say now is the time to buy real estate. So I got my real estate license to try to figure that out. So I ended up working with a small brokerage property management firm, and I started having, first-time home buyers. And at the time, you couldn't actually get to the property without it being under contract because there was a frenzy of institutional buyers. And what ended up happening is that I ended up showing rentals. So these buyers couldn't even be buyers because the houses were being snapped up so quickly. So they were turning into renters. So I would get paid like $200 a listing every time I would lease a unit. And but I had found one company that was paying about $1,000 a lease. It's a company, American Homes for Rent. They're a large, second biggest build. They're the biggest build to rent company now, but they're the second biggest single family home rental company that was buying up all the houses. And I I was working at Red Lobster making $1,500 a month. And in my first month of showing all these properties for them, I made $15,000. And they ended up recruiting me after that month. I think they were growing quickly. And I ended up leaving Red Lobster like immediately, had no questions, like, okay, sounds good to me. And I ended up going to work for them, and there was about 10 agents that worked for them. And what I had to my advantage is that I had a lot of time available, and I just devoted 100% of my time to that job. And I thought, I've never made 15,000, and I thought it was going to be like a 6-month period that I would work there, and then they would fire me at that end. Like there's just 200 vacant houses that we're trying to lease. So I'm running around showing properties and making more money than I've ever made, thinking that this is all going to end. And around 6 months in, exactly what I thought was going to happen happened. But it happened to be that there was 10 agents, and 7 of them they let go, and I happened to be in the top 3 that stayed. And in the meantime, they had 2 of the other agents ended up quitting or getting fired. It was pretty intense, stressful job. Just a very demanding job. And I just thought to myself, I'm never going to make this much money ever again. So I'm going to try to take advantage of it. And so slowly I became the only agent. I had 120 listings in my name, and just really started to clean up, focus like obsessively on creating systems to leasing. Over a weekend, I like leased like 20 houses in a weekend. And so that was how I got into real estate. And over time, I started listening to personal finance podcast, talking about, putting your money in your 401k, trying to get up your savings rate as fast as possible. And I lived like I worked at Red Lobster the whole time I was making that money. I was, I wasn't buying fancy cars or anything like that. I was just, and another thing that happened while I was in this time is I had a Honda Civic, and my interest rate on the Honda Civic, because my credit was terrible, was 23.9% interest.
Wow.
And on a $400 a month payment, it's actually 350 of it goes to interest and $50 goes to principal. So it was when I started really learning about personal finance and learning about what interest rates are and how you calculate them. Because I was always calculating every month. I would make a payment and be like, how much my principal is coming? And my credit was so bad that I couldn't even refinance out of it. So I was focusing on my credit and everything. And so anyways, that's how I got into the personal finance thing, and really just obsessively listening to everything I could and learning that savings rate is the key to becoming financially independent. And so I tracked my net worth, tracked my expenses, and just consistently tried to figure out how much more I could put towards my 401k and IRAs. And I managed to run into I would find people that were further along than me. And it would be like, I met one guy that had 2,000 units, another guy that had, that was apartments, and another guy that had, we'll say 1,000 units, and his was mobile home parks. And a close friend of mine that's now my business partner, at the time, he had about 30 units himself. And I would follow these guys around on my days off. Like if my days off were like during the week, I would just call them, hey, what are you doing? I'll ride in the car with you. Some of them were like, why are you hanging out with me? They see it as work. And I'm like, just trying to embrace as much as I could, or, take in as much as I could. And one thing I learned about these guys that were investing in real estate is that they had no other funds in anywhere else except for real estate. So they didn't have money in the stock market. They didn't have, I asked them about their 401ks. And you would think that the guys that are actually making money, you would want to shield your wealth, as in put it in a 401k, save yourself
Right.
some from taxes. But what I've learned is that these guys were focusing on cash flow and building net worths. And quickly, over a 2 to 3 year time period, that I learned that I couldn't continue to contribute to my 401k like I was and become financially independent, because you can only have one master. So I started pivoting from that position to a, more of a buying real estate, and everything had to do with, if I invest this dollar, how much is it going to get me back on cash flow? And so that could look like a few things. So paying down debt. If I have a $20,000 loan on a car and the monthly payment is $600 a month, I would say 20,000 is getting me a $600 increase in cash flow. So I would take that and pay off the 20,000 before I would put it towards anything else. So that 20,000 would make me $600 a month. And then it started, once you get out of debt, you start to get to other areas. And then I got into, velocity banking, where I would take a line of credit against my house, and I started paying down my own real estate. And what I did is I recasted my mortgage. So you don't refinance it. It's you're pretty much restretching the loan back out. It's considered a loan modification. It doesn't hurt your credit, but it so say it's been a year into the mortgage and I paid off, I think it was like 50 to 100,000 in 1 year. I was able to do that. My mortgage, I recasted it and I made my mortgage $500 a month is what happened. And once I opened up my savings to where I could really put some money away, I started really starting to buy into real estate. Like I have 500, my monthly mortgage is $500. So what do I have to do to buy a piece of property to replace this, to pretty much pay this $500 mortgage? So I took a line of credit against my house to buy another piece of real estate. And it was just another single family home, but I looked at it as, I'll end up renting this other house that the mortgage is $500, rent it for $2,000 a month. And I had $1,500 a month coming in, not including expenses, of course. And when I did that, when the first check cleared my account was when I was like, this is why people buy real estate.
Right. Well, and if I can jump in there real quick,
Go for it.
Glenn, is so yeah, thanks first of all for sharing that journey up until this point. And I think it's pretty impressive. So you're at Red Lobster, right? Working, making $1,500 a month as a server there. And then, you come across this job as, with the property management company, paying $1,000 per lease. I mean, that's significant, right? And then you start making about $15,000 a month. So, like 100 extra money, right?
Yeah.
And then, but what I love about this is then you start being in the same circles as the people that are doing deals and making stuff happen, right? And then you come across the mobile home, opportunities, and that group, and eventually end up meeting your friend, your business, becoming a business partner there. And I just want to highlight, because you did share. I mean, you didn't obviously just start this way. You educated yourself, right? You were listening to books, you were reading books, listening to guys like Bloomberg and all this, right? Which is, again, sometimes it's kind of dry, but it's, just educating yourself on, I know if I just keep doing the same thing over and over, I'm just going to stay where I'm at, right? So what can I do to better myself, further my education, right? That's outside of a college, right? That the self-education we talk about. And now here you are using what I like to call creative financing or creative opportunities to, because most of us hear about refinance, and things like that, using a HELOC to take money out of, but, restructuring the loan, stretching out the loan to create, just create some more income and then be able to have some different strategies there to help you grow your portfolio. I mean, it's just amazing. And so what I would share to the listeners is this is what we talk. This is the main point of why, I started this podcast is we want to help educate others on how to achieve, we kind of tailor it to passive income, but really it's just how to structure your finances, how to structure your income where you can set yourselves up to be in this position that Glenn's talking about, but it didn't just start out like this. Like you talked about the struggles with alcohol, right? You had to overcome that, which I know how tough that is, right? And in itself. And then you're starting from the bottom, pretty much in your parents' bedroom or basement or whatever it was there, and building yourself back up to where you're at today. But, what I like how you said, Glenn, is you got to get your own house in order, right? Is essentially like, get out of debt. Like and Glenn, so he's an operator now, like we mentioned, owns $40 million worth of real estate and then, focusing on heavily in the mobile home parks. But we talk to people about this may not be a good fit for you. If I come across somebody that is $50,000 in debt, besides their house, right, and just trying to make ends meet, right, this isn't the best opportunity for you that I'm offering, investing $50,000 in an illiquid investment, which means you can't touch your money in 3 to 5 years, right? Which that's capital you may need to have access to. So going back to get your own house in order, right? Get out of debt, manage your own finances, get to a stable point, and then start looking at these opportunities, which comes from educating, listening to podcasts like this, reading books, and so on and so forth. So anyways, Glenn, just wanted to highlight that because I like how you talked, through that transition and kind of where you're at up to this point.
So also to add to that, right after I started buying these single family homes, we did start to look at these like a syndication model, and my business partner, I kind of assisted him on building that out, but I invested as if I were a limited partner. And my last year of my W-2, I had, the markets was going a little crazy. If you bought anything in 2017, 18, you're in a great position. And even then, when you bought it, you're like, I think I'm buying at the top at 2017, 18. And who knew that it was going to do what it did? Yeah. But anyways, I ended up extracting about 200 grand or saving up between 200 grand to invest as a limited partner. And that was when I started getting into like the syndication model. And the business partner I had he was buying these deals and having a third party management company manage them. And because of my background of working at American Homes for Rent, I was able to, talk to him. Hey, man, I have my strong suit is operations, and his was to get the deal done, and that's kind of how it's created. And that's when I left my job, making $150,000 a year to work for him. My starting pay was $1,500 a month. I was back to $1,500 a month, and I could tell you, my first day after I left that W-2, I was like crying tears of joy. Like I was just like, I can't believe I'm doing this right now. And
there's a freedom in that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Again, a couple things came up there is, that journey and just taking that step, right? Because most people would say you're crazy for leaving a $150,000 job, right? Like, why would you do that? I've had that question come up to me. Why would you even consider leaving your job whenever you're doing this? And then, arguably the top 15-20%, right? Of what, besides the ultra wealthy, like of what, the middle class is making, to go make $1,500 and start out where you were as a server. But as we know, Glenn, you start somewhere and you get around, again, back to these circles, right? You get around people that are doing what you're doing and start learning from them. I mean, that's why like they have these internships and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like paying you little to no money, but you just soak up all this stuff like a sponge. And then I think that just accelerates you, like in your case, to where you're at today and now becoming a partner, with this individual. And I also like to, touch on, if you are considering possibly being active in this space, and what Glenn was talking about, getting involved in syndications and stuff, for anybody that's new listening, that's just where we're raising money from investors, right? For the down payments, renovation costs, things like that for these properties, whether it be mobile home parks, apartments, storage, whatever the case may be. And then, again, if you are going to be on the active side, which going back to the goals, decide whether you're an active investor or a passive investor, right? There's a lot of resources, a lot of books that we can point you to really determine what that looks like. But then, Glenn, you started leveraging, because you had a property management background, right? So you were good at operations, really managing the property. And then your partner, had his experience and what he was good at. We call it, what's your superpower, right? What are you good at? And so you leverage other people, because it's you don't want somebody that's good at the same thing partnering together, right? Because you got to leverage somebody, especially again on the active. If you're going out and buying these properties, you want somebody that's good at the numbers, underwriting, somebody that's good at asset management or operations, managing the property, make sure the vacancy is good, and the construction and everything's done, as far as the renovations, and then somebody building relationships, right? Talking to brokers, investors, and things like that. So, again, thanks for highlighting that. And I would like to, sort of transition into, because we've talked about storage units, we've talked about debt funding, we've talked about multifamily, obviously, and some other asset classes, but we've talked about oil and gas, but I would like to go into the mobile home structure a little bit, if you don't mind, Glenn, and really just kind of lay that out for us. How does that work as a new investor wanting to get into this space? Once they kind of determine, okay, hey, I want mobile home to be my asset class, what should they look for? What questions typically come up, and yeah.
Yeah. So the macro answer for mobile home parks is that they are really not building enough. They're destroyed. The amount of mobile home parks are going down in size. So, mobile home availability, so it's like you read about it all the time, where they will, what we call it is scrape the park, where they'll pull all the mobile homes out and then they'll redevelop the mobile home park to some retail center or, apartment complex or condo building. And
because the land is what's the most valuable, right?
Yeah. So
okay, yeah.
that, and for us as an operator, and when we look for deals, we pretty much are looking for land values is what we're paying, and what is paying for the land is the mobile homes on site. So we have a little bit of a niche compared to what you would normally see. So what a lot of people might be familiar with would be like a 55 plus neighborhood. We focus more on the family parks, and it's a different asset class compared. Like there's two sets. There's a 55 plus, and then there's a family park. And the family parks is where, even with the 55 plus, it's literally the most affordable housing you can have. I would say the one thing that is a little bit more affordable would be an RV park, because if you can get an RV, you're paying lower lot rents than, say, a mobile home park usually. But we do buy both. But for mobile homes, we buy the mobile home parks that are what they call park-owned homes, and these park-owned homes are it's like ran like an apartment complex, but they're mobile homes. And what we do is what the end buyer for us to sell to would want these mobile homes off the balance sheet. So we end up selling off the mobile homes to the residents or new residents that we move in, but we sell off the mobile homes and we charge them lot rent. So then what it does is it offsets a big expense. So depending on the mobile home park, but we have this one that's about 50 units in Brooksville, Florida. And it's like every single or every other day we're buying a new refrigerator or new oven. And it's like, you know, $300-500 used appliances that we're putting into these units. And with that, it becomes it's expensive over time. And
Yeah, times that by 50. Yeah.
and it almost adds zero value.
Right.
What I could tell you, because the amount of value that the mobile homes give is the depreciated value of the mobile home itself. So like we're selling these mobile homes for about 10 to 15 up to 20,000, and then we charge the lot rent. And due to them being pretty much a fixed structure on the property, they buy the mobile homes and then they just start paying you lot rent. And what we do is we maintain the grounds. A lot of them have septic tanks, so there's septic tanks to manage. A lot of them have wells because they're generally in rural locations. So we maintain the grounds. We do constant quality control. So it's not as passive as you would think, just because you're like, well, if you're not doing any maintenance, it's like you almost always have to be there because you're like becoming the HOA to the neighborhood. And the only way for a park to get nicer is just to make sure that there's no trash being cluttered, you know, hoarding. It's somewhat common just because of I would say the demographic. You think about what actually happens to, this might be further than I need to go, but like a hoarder would think that you're never going to be able to replace this. So they see trash as a valuable, they see it as value. To like most people like me, I would say I'm going to throw this away, and if I have to buy it later, I'll just buy it later, you know, type thing. But with somebody that has limited resources, they'll hold on to things, and what will happen is it becomes a hoarding issue, and it happens a lot in mobile home parks.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to keep the exteriors at least cleaned up outside. If they need, we go around and generally we'll pressure wash for them. But if they need to fix their unit, it's up to them to fix.
Right, right. Well, and if you could walk us through, you know, so again, kind of after that, understanding the asset class, kind of how that works, which again, thanks for going through that. What are some numbers you can put to this? Now, not sure if these are 506B or 506C deals, but if you could give us maybe an average. So, you know, for me as an investor, if I'm looking at, okay, I've done some multifamily deals, I'm looking to diversify. What are some average cash flows, hold time? How long is my money held up in these deals? Do I still get the tax, benefits? You know, what's that process look like there?
Yeah, so these mobile homes are, I would say, very hard to find because they they don't get turned over regularly, and so our hold time is, we generally hold on for at least 5 to 10 years is our goal.
Okay.
What our long-term plan would be is to have a very large portfolio, like roll it up and then sell it off as a bulk portfolio to a larger institution. But we would like to get to a large, like right now we're at about 500 units, and we're going to be at, it's not really a large portfolio until you're past 1,000, but I would say ideally we want to be to 3 to 5,000 units.
Yeah.
And because of our systems and operations, we have all of our properties are in the Tampa MSA. So we have about 3 construction crews that work regularly, and we are able to buy smaller parks that the bigger guys aren't able to because they don't have the infrastructure. And that's why they always buy, say, 100 unit or 200 unit mobile home park, because everything's there, as in like you can pretty much create a new business with a 200 unit mobile home park compared to us that we buy 30 to 50 units, but we have 500 units in one location type area.
Yeah.
So that way we can use economies of scale to manage them. But what I would say with the purchase price, generally, the expense ratio we would look at it is about 40% on a mobile home park. And we generally buy the mobile homes between 30 and 50,000 per pad. And depending on the condition of the mobile home park, of course, and location. But overall, I would expect, we generally get between 650 and 850 lot rent for that. So if you look at like apartments, from what I've seen, we haven't been able to make sense of them much recently, just because of the amount. 'Cause I'm in Florida, to disclose that. It's I think the real estate's a little bit more expensive here than, say, the Midwest. But what we've seen is mobile home apartments are around 150,000, and you're getting about, we'll say, 12 to 14,000 of revenue. So we're buying them 30 to 50,000, and we're getting about 1.5 times on the purchase.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and what is and it's typically, is it structured like a multifamily on an investor side? So like, are you doubling your money in 5 to 10 years? Are you getting a higher cash flow?
So we do offer, I think we generally, depending on our deals, we do, right now we're offering between an 8 and 9% preferred return.
Okay.
And we thankfully haven't missed a preferred return yet. We pay them out monthly. And I don't know if that's common, but I would say that we also invest in these properties with everyone. So we like the income. We put our money in, and we get a monthly paycheck from these. So like,
right,
our investment, and because we live off of rental income, we see a value in paying out a monthly distribution. So we like the idea that we pay monthly.
Is this more of a cash flow play then with these mobile home parks?
Yeah, so mobile home parks are historically a cash flow play. I would say that we don't buy anything that's not a value add, because that's kind of how you shield yourself from a downturning market. So
right.
If you build value in the middle of a market that's going downward, you're still in the, should be positive equity because of the amount of equity that you're putting into the place.
Yeah.
So we like to do value add for sure.
Okay. Yeah. So you get the 8 to 9% roughly on a monthly distribution, and then you can still participate in the upside when the deal does sell. Right.
So one thing I also would disclose, the difference between mobile home parks and apartments, because apartments are a favored class. You're going to have, like, if you go out and go look for financing on an apartment, you'll have thousands of banks that want to finance. When you get to mobile homes, there's probably about 50 banks that will that will lend on a mobile home park. And what I would say is that once we're buying these parks with park-owned homes, and those are next to impossible to finance because of the insurance requirements that the bank's going to require. So what we do is we sell these mobile homes off, and then we add in, they look at the value of the lot rent, and because of the lot rent, it's a lower cap rate that they're going to value it on, compared to because it's technically more like a land value compared to a apartment value. So they give a lower cap rate. But what I would say, to add to that, to do a cash out refinance, the problem with mobile home parks is that it is harder to get the full amount of value out, because they want the property to be seasoned, which is to the banks is generally 2 to 3 years of tax returns before they can give you more than what you've paid in CapEx.
Gotcha.
So, like, say the value of the park, like if we went to sell it on the open market, we'll say that we bought this park for $2 million and it's now worth $3 million. They're only going to give us 70% of the purchase price plus the CapEx that we put into it. So if they say we put, we'll say $300,000 into this park, they're going to give us 70% of that, which is $210,000, and then 70% of the purchase price. So we still will have a very low debt to value
ratio.
on the property. And from every time we try to go to refinance, we're generally refinancing still at a very low. It's like around 50 to 55% of loan to value.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And it makes sense too why you're, wanting to sell these off as in a bigger portfolio too, with that being said. So
Yep.
yeah, no, thanks for going through that. And then now, Glenn, I want to go ahead and transition over to our fire round, is what I like to call it.
Oh boy, here it comes.
Here it comes. Get ready. Get ready here. So we're going to go, over 4 questions here I'm going to ask you. First one being if you could recommend a book on real estate for individuals just getting started, or something that, had a big significant impact in your life. And then also a book on cultivating a positive mindset.
I mean, it's a very cliche answer, but I think if it was a book, it would be Rich Dad Poor Dad. But I would say the one thing that keeps me motivated is podcast. So I like to listen to podcasts. There's a bunch, and I kind of cycle through them. But I would say that I think it's called Get Rich Education. With he does mainly single family homes, but he talks about finance and leverage and how to think about real estate, and it kind of gives you like more of an idea of what it's like, encouraging to continue to keep going. And what I would say with the how-tos books, I think sometimes you just gotta, those podcasts are, you're talking to operators, and these guys are giving you something you couldn't get. Like, it would be very hard to find an operator that's talking about mobile home parks. Even for me being in the industry, I get it off of podcasts to hear these other guys talk about it as well. So
yeah, that's cool. What about mindset?
Mindset, a big one for me. I back to the podcast. I don't, like I said, my attention span is pretty bad, and I like the Ryan Pineda and Alex Hermosi are the two guys that I really like to follow, and kind of give you the long-term understanding of how long it's going to take. And it's always like, I'll never be able to estimate what's going to happen to me in 5 years. And if I think in 5-year increments, it's my expectations aren't let down as much, because I'll always think like my goal would be to, like, I need to make this much amount in 5 years. I can tell you every 5-year increments, I'm way undershooting. Like, the goal is way lower. And a lot of these guys you're listening to, the thing I like about podcasts as well is that if I were to get in the car with Alex Hermosi, I could tell you that I would know his stories just as good, because I've listened to so many of his podcasts. And I could talk to him as if he were like my best friend, because I've listened to every single thing he's done, along with Ryan Pineda, and I could have a full-on conversation with him, because it's like you're getting to know people that are way further along than I am. And it's just surrounding yourself with those types of people.
Yeah, I love that. I think Ed Milet, he's another big listen to, and he talks about, if you're on that journey going along the road, ask the people coming back where they've been, right? Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just, do what they do. And like you're saying, soak up all that content. And that's what I love about podcasts too. You really get to know somebody and again, what they're doing and the success they're having there. All right. Well, next question here, Glenn. Can you share a specific goal or dream that means that holds a specific special significance to you?
I could tell you that one of the biggest ones that I had for a very long time, I worked at American Homes for Rent for 9 years. And it was like every day I would listen to these podcasts and do all these things. And the day that I actually left my W-2 to work on these deals was one of those things where I couldn't believe it was actually happening. And I've left my job before too early, and I based it off of, I'm going to go and sell and do all these things. But I can tell you that cash flow is one of those things that is like a warm blanket at night. where I can easily think like I'm going to get this much amount of money and I can pay all my bills, and leaving this job won't be the end of the world. It'll just give me more opportunity to pursue what I want to do. And I still have cash flow goals. Currently I just sold my house, my primary residence, to move into an apartment. It's it's I would say it's not exactly luxurious, but what I would say is that I moved to a school zone where I want my kids to go to school, and the amount of equity that I made on my primary resident, I was able to roll it into I would say a very limited. I mean, it was a promissory note, so it turned into that one. I think I rolled about $180,000 into a 15% promissory note, and that right there pays my rent where I'm at. So I like almost become financially independent again. Like
Right.
I was already financially independent, sold my primary, and then there's always a goal. And then what I do, and I was talking to my good friend, he's very successful. What ends up happening is that I start portioning off my finances to make those things financially independent as well. So like now I have a portfolio of promissory notes. They pay my living expenses, and then I have some limited partner positions in my own syndications, but those pay a portion of it, and then I have my own income from the property management as well. So it's like now I'm trying to grow the promissory notes. I'm trying to grow the limited partner. I'm trying to grow my own business. And it's like consistent goals for each position. I don't know if I answered your question on that one.
Yeah, no, you did. I love it. Yeah. And it's just that like you sleep better at night when you got cash flow. I mean, for me, like being
Yep.
100% in commission in the sales world, right? I mean, if I get hurt or something happens to me, right, I may be making good money now, but that monthly income just stops, after
Yeah.
that. And so just having that backup plan B, right? And then when we do make that transition, it covers the living expenses, which is that financial freedom number, right?
Yep.
No, that made total sense. Question 3, how do you structure your day to maintain a healthy work-life balance? Do you have a morning routine you can share with us?
Yeah. So I could tell you that me and you have same age kids. It's like two and a 5-year-old, and the weekends is like boot camp. You're going, and there's no sitting around when it comes to that. So like around 9 o'clock, there's no more cartoons. You got to get out of the house. You got to get moving, or else you're going to be driving yourself crazy. And what I can tell you, one thing that I value is my Monday mornings. Is when I go Monday morning, I go to the gym. And what I do is I schedule everything. My calendar, generally you can't schedule anything on my calendar at before 10:30. So what I do is I go to the gym at 8 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, I'm usually done weightlifting, and I go for a walk. It's called Bayshore. It's a real nice place in Tampa, and I walk through a fancy neighborhood. So I kind of get motivated through seeing very nice, expensive houses. But I walk to the Bayshore, come back, and I'm generally at my computer by 9:30, and I get to work. It's what I do on that walk as well is I'll get on the phone with property managers, investors and stuff like that, and I'll just have conversations. So it's like I'm still working, but at the same time I'm still staying active. And I could tell you, after leaving my W-2, I lost 50 pounds just from not sitting at a desk all day. And
And the stress too, probably.
oh, the stress, and
Yeah.
when you've been at a desk all day, it's very hard to get motivated to go to the gym in the afternoon or when everybody's at the gym. So usually 8 o'clock, it's pretty quiet. So I'm able to get in and get what I need. Most important, health. If you don't have your health, you can ask the richest people in the world. If they don't have their health, they'd pay anything to have it. So it's one of those things that you got to take care of it first, or else none of it really matters.
Yep. No, I love that. And last and final question, Glenn, if you could be remembered for one thing, what would that be?
I mean, whenever I read that question, I thought to myself that being a good son, father, and a friend. These are things that when I was drinking, I couldn't really do. When you're drinking, I'm just like taking care of Glenn, ruining relationships. And whenever I stopped drinking, I could tell you that the number one thing I wanted to fix is relationships. It makes me, just in doing those things, it makes me a better husband, and a father to my kids. I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. And super, I'm really glad to hear you were able to kind of get to that aha moment where
Yeah.
it's like, if I keep going this way, it's not going to be good. And you were able to kind of not kind of make that shift and turn it around. Now here you got a 2 and a 5-year-old that you can be present for in their lives and just show up, right? That's pretty cool, man. So thanks for getting vulnerable and sharing that with us as well. And Glenn, if you could tell listeners, where they can find you and learn more about what you do.
Yeah, so I also have a podcast. It's called The Millionaire Journey. I have Jarod on the show probably about the same time this one's being posted. But I also like to interview over financial journeys, and I really like to get into the personal finance aspect of it. And I'm LinkedIn is my main place. I like to be on LinkedIn. Glenn Yaney is I guess where you would find me. And we have a website. It's called verticalequityproperties.com. And that will be where you can see all of our properties. You can get on our investor list. And yeah, I'd love to chat.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Glenn, and appreciate you coming on the show with us today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Optimal Wealth Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, be sure to optimize your results and take massive action on what you have learned here today. For more, visit optimalequitygroup.com.